So, did you choose to be a project manager, or it found you? Or did you plan to be a project manager and you ended up being a project manager? By the end of this video, you should be able to identify who you are in terms of 3 categories of project management. So let's go through them one by one and understand what does it mean when you fall into one of these 3 categories, or when you fall into one of these 3 types of project managers. Hello and welcome to my channel. So in this video, I'm going to take you through 3 types of project managers. So you could be asking yourself, Oscar, what do you mean by these 3 types of project? There are basically 3 of them. And at the end of this video, you should be able to identify which one are you. So the first one is accidental project managers. So this is where someone ends up being a project manager without any intention to do that. Say, for example, there is a project on your desk, then you have to take it up. Then you also have intentional project manager. Intentional project manager is the one who is going to who's going to prepare, who's going to create a path to become a project manager. And then when we talk about unrecognized project managers, these are so many of them. They are responsible for deliveries, they are responsible for planning, managing teams, delivering projects, but they don't have the title. So these are the 3 main types of project management people or individuals that are going to look into, or categories. So let's move on. So the structure of this video is as follows. You are going to have the accidental project manager. We'll discuss that. We are also going to discuss the intentional project manager. We are also going to discuss the unrecognized project manager. So hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Oscar Mbira. I'm a certified project and program manager. In this video, I'm going to take you through the 3 types of project managers, or 3 categories of project managers that you'll find in any project environment. I hope you're enjoying the video so far. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to click the like button, subscribe button, and the notification button, so that you're the first person to be notified each time a new video is uploaded on this channel. It will also help the channel to grow. It will also help the channel to produce more videos like this one. In this particular video, I'm going to cover the accidental project manager. So what do we mean by accidental project manager? This is a project manager who had not planned to be a project manager, but by some scenario, some environment, or some situation, this person ended up being a project manager. Something was put on his desk, and the manager or the senior manager or even the boss said, you have to run with this. Then they end up doing the planning, they end up doing the team management, they deliver projects, and so on and so forth. Based on my experience as a project manager, project managers, they don't normally choose themselves. I can give you an example of myself. How I ended up being a project manager is our project manager was not available in one of the projects, and I was actually a team lead on that project. And our regional manager came to the project, announced that most probably our project manager was no longer going to be back into the project. And he had any project manager on the bench. So we were about a team of 33, I think about 33 people or resources in that project. Then the question which was coming from our regional manager was, we want someone from the current team to lead this project until it's done. So can we have volunteers? So to be honest with you, I had seniors. When I say senior, I mean people who were in the project earlier than me in terms of experience, in terms of also qualification, and also in terms of number of projects that were delivered. So when our regional manager was asking that question, who can take over as the PM? Who can take over as the project manager of that project? I was expecting my seniors to raise their hands, but unfortunately, no one was willing to do that. So at the end of the day, I raised my hand. I said, I think I can do it. Then the regional manager took me aside. He explained to me the pressures that comes with project manager, the responsibility of managing the team, the responsibility of managing all stakeholders, including the client, and also stakeholders, including the team, the regulator, and so on and so forth. So it was very clear to me in terms of what it entails to become a project manager. So I accepted the challenge. And to be honest with you, at that point, I had not made any certification in terms of project management. I had not made any training in terms of project management. But I took over the responsibility. So if I go back to this narrative, is one of those 3 types or 3 categories of project managers. I became a project manager by accident. Then later on, that's when I started certifying, I started training myself, I started practicing. I gained a lot of experience for the last 15 or 20 years. And then now I'm project manager. I'm not talking about project management. So this is normally how I've seen project managers in terms of their route or their journey, in terms of their path to project management. They don't normally choose, but there are different circumstances that can cause you to be a project manager. And one of them, like I've given you as an example, is accidental project manager, which means you have not even planned to be a project manager, but circumstances, they forced you to become a project manager. For example, you might be having a project just put on your desk, and then your boss can ask you to run with it. You have no training, you have nothing, but all what you have to do is to make sure that you deliver. So that is the first category that we are going to look into, accidental project manager. So let's go through the pros, the cons, advantages, disadvantages, what to expect, and so on and so forth in this particular category. This is so. When it comes to accidental project manager, you have not planned anything. Okay, you end up being a project manager, which means you end up taking the responsibilities of a project manager. One of them is managing stakeholders, and also managing the team, managing the execution of the project, as well as monitoring and controlling the project. You also need to do the planning, and for each and every cycle or phase or stage, you also need to do the initiation and so on and so forth. So when it comes to accidental project manager, in most cases, they have not trained to be a project manager. That's number one. Then number two, they have no even certification of being a project manager. So in most cases, they learn on the job. They learn to do some of these things on the job, or either by someone they were shadowing before, and then they can run the project up to success. So let's look into other items of accidental project manager. So accidental project manager sounds very familiar, and these are some of the items which can be attributed to being an accidental project manager. The first one is you were the most organized person on the team. So in some cases, and I think it can also relate to me, you could have been a very organized person in a team, in a project team, and therefore one of your seniors might decide to say, if this guy is very organized, if this guy is able to summarize in meetings, if this guy is able to follow up on activities, if this guy has got soft skills, if this guy can work very well with the team, then why can we not make this person a project manager without any training? So you find, because you're a very organized person in the team, you might end up being either appointed, self-appointed, or even organizational appointed to become a project manager. It's one of the activities that is expected. It's one of the scenarios that is also expected to make you an accidental project manager. Then the second one is your manager says you would be great at this. So let me expand on this. You know, like me now, I'm now a senior project or program manager. There are certain individuals, when I work with them in my project, I'm able to identify that this one would be able to deliver this task. So if there's something new that is coming in, I always assign it to those resources. So you could be one of those members where your senior realize that you could be good or great at this, and therefore your senior will request you to lead a project. At the end of the day, you become a project manager. Then the third one is the project needed a lead and you raised your hand. So let me expand on this. The project needed a lead and you raised your hand. So this goes very well with what I've said earlier in my scenario. The regional manager was asking for a project manager, I raised my hand. So at the end of the day, you become a project manager. You might not be very good at the beginning because project management requires a lot of practice and experience. But with time and with practice, certification, and so on and so forth, you become very good. So these are also scenarios which can end up having you as a project manager in a project environment. So if you want to understand and to appreciate more on how to become a very successful project manager, I've created for you a comprehensive ebook on how to become a project manager and how to become a successful project manager. You can find the link in the description below, and it will help you to also master the art of project management. So the fourth one is you just started doing it until it was your job. Let me expand on this. So you have seen so many people, especially internal and short-term projects. You find someone is just doing it just out of interest, out of curiosity. Then with time, maybe over some months, over some years, this person becomes a project manager without any specific certification that has been targeted. Then you become a project manager. So these are also accidental project managers. They have started doing something related to project management until it becomes their job. And then at the end of the day, you find they become project managers. So as we go through this video, I need you to do a proper assessment, a genuine assessment of yourself, and then conclude whether you're an accidental project manager or you're not an accidental project manager. Based on what we have discussed earlier, you are great at doing something and then your leader decided to make you a project manager. Or you're a very organized person and then your leadership, they decide to make you a project manager. Or probably you were just doing something and you ended up being a project manager. Or they wanted a project manager environment, they wanted a project manager in a project environment and you raised your hand. Then you become a project manager. So this is the category of accidental project manager that we are talking about in this video. So now let us go through about 4, hidden powers of an accidental project manager, so that you appreciate what are the hidden powers of an accidental project manager. So the first one is adaptability. When an accidental project manager, you have no training, remember you have no training, you have no experience of running projects, but you become a project manager. So you start adapting to different processes in project management. You start adapting to different even project politics in project management. You even start adapting to project pressures in a project environment. Like I told you earlier, I was sensitized to say there's a lot of pressure on the project in terms of managing the stakeholders, in terms of delivering on time, in terms of delivering within budget, and also to deliver the good quality, and also to deliver the right scope. So it is also possible that you have to adapt to so many things very fast, especially when it comes to planning. You have to adapt to planning very fast. You also need to adapt to monitoring and control. Even the actual execution of the project, where you're going to produce your deliverables or your products, it has to be something that you have to move very fast. So the second power of accidental project manager is fast learning. You have no experience, you have no certification, you have not read any book about project management, but you still need to deliver the project. So how do you do that? You need to learn a lot of things very fast. For example, you need to learn about planning very fast. You need to learn about project management. You need to learn about procurement. You need to learn about cost management in a project. You need to learn about how do you monitor, how do you evaluate progress in a project management. You also need to learn the end value management in a project. There are so many formulas that are associated with that. You need to learn critical path item. How do you calculate a critical path? How do you identify critical path items? And so on and so forth. So there's a lot that you have to learn as a project manager. For example, assuming you are into Agile project management, definitely you have to learn so many things in terms of how is the Agile applied, what are the different types of Agile methodology, like your Lean, your extreme programming, your Kanban, your Scrumming, and all those things. So if you're an accidental project manager, one of the characteristics that are expected from you is fast learning. You should be a fast learner for you to be moving very well in terms of project management career. I hope you're enjoying the video so far. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to click the like button, subscribe button, and the notification button, so that you're the first person to be notified each time a new video is uploaded on this channel. It will also help the channel to grow. It will also help the channel to produce more videos like this one. So the third hidden power of a project manager is resilience. So if you're an accidental project manager, normally in most cases you don't get the support that is given to a professional project manager. But you have to go through the bumpy roads, the winds, all the waves of the project management process on your own. Sometimes you might have some setbacks. Then because of that resilience inside you as an accidental project manager, you end up getting up, fighting again, moving the project forward, and at the end of the day, even delivering the project successfully. So resilience is one of the natural hidden powers which you normally find with accidental project managers. Because remember, these are the people who had not planned to do that, but they found themselves in that situation, and they're not going to backtrack. They're going to make sure that at least they deliver that particular project. Then the fourth one is the real world instincts. So you have no experience of delivering any project. You have not read any textbook. You have not gone for any certification, but you are now a project manager. So it is also on your instincts. in terms of decision making. How do I make things work in a project? How do I make the team coordinate, collaborate in a project? How do I manage vendors in a project? How do you make sure that the procurement process is quick enough to support the project? How do you make sure that the cost management is done for the benefit and for the goals of the project? So these are the four hidden powers of accidental project managers. And it's very important for you to assess yourself to see to which of these types do you belong to, or who are you in terms of project managers with those three types of project management. So, as an accidental project manager, there are some challenges you're going to face. And in this particular section of the video, we are going to cover those challenges and also how to overcome them when you become an accidental project manager. So, let's move on. So, the first challenge you're going to face as an accidental project manager is the imposter syndrome. What do we mean by imposter syndrome? It's like you internally probably you're not the real project manager, but you ended up being a project manager. So you might take yourself as if you're imposing yourself as a project manager. So how do we overcome this particular challenge, the imposter syndrome? One of the items to overcome that is to make sure that you also document your wins in your project. Remember, you're an accidental project manager, so there are a lot of people who are interested to see if you're going to work, if you're going to make it in the project management process or management cycle. So the moment you start documenting your wins and present it to different stakeholders, there's going to be some appreciation. And that imposter syndrome, it will start slowing down on you. Then also your wins, they are real. If you're going to win anything, it means it's real. Remember, you're not a proper project manager, accidental project manager, but you are winning. It means you are making it in the project management life cycle. So you have to make sure that that is real. Then the third one is also, you might also look for a mentor to coach you or to help you to progress more in terms of project management. I can tell you from my experience, project management during the early days, it's not very simple. If you're not strong enough, I can tell you, you can end up quitting. It's a very challenging process initially, but as you get used to project management, everything becomes easy, everything becomes very, very smooth. So it's better you look for a coach, it's better you look for a mentor who is going to be able to take you through the whole cycle of project management when you have problems, which means if you have got issues, you have someone to fall back to. If you have got issues, you have someone to ask in terms of project management lifecycle. So when you are an accidental project manager, one of the challenges you're going to face, I can tell you, I went through the same process, is high stress levels. There's going to be stress coming in from different angles. One of them, it could be from your team. The other one, it could be from stakeholders, from your seniors, project board, steering committee, vendors, and so on and so forth. So you always face this challenge of high stress levels. I can tell you, it will be difficult for you to sleep for 7 hours. In most cases, 2, 3, 4 hours until you get used to the project management processes. So high stress levels is what you should expect when you become an accidental project manager. So to overcome this, just make sure that you have some daily habits which helps you to close issues, which helps you to engage your stakeholders, which helps you to report properly what is happening in the project. So that is very, very important. Always be organized. And then the second item to reduce your stress level, like what I normally do in my project, is to create a proper project structure where you have your project manager, and then lower level you have your team leaders or team managers like this, and also at the lower level you also have your team members. The reason why I'm giving you that that way of reducing high levels of stress is you are putting experts as team managers or team leads. Yours is just to make sure that you facilitate, you unlock issues, you remove blocks or blockers, you remove them in the process. But in terms of thinking of the solution, how to apply it, in terms of even planning what is called team level planning, you can also work with them, but they know better than you, so they can plan for you. So my advice is, if you're an accidental project manager and you are going through a lot of high level stress in the project, the best is to make sure you restructure a project in such a way that more of the technical responsibilities goes to the team managers and the team leaders. And then the third challenge you're going to face is the trial and error loops. So as an accidental project manager, don't try to do everything at any given moment. Always try to choose. Say, for example, in terms of methodology, choose between Agile, predictive, or what we normally call Waterfall project management. Those are the two items or project management methodologies that you should choose. So when you're doing your trial and error, just make sure that at any given point, after analyzing the project or when you look at the project, You also analyze it properly, that you are able to decide whether you're going to use Agile or you're going to use the Waterfall methodology. So that is also very, very critical for you to overcome some of these challenges. The fourth challenge you're going to face when you're an extended or project manager is stakeholder management. I can tell you, managing stakeholders in a project is not easy. You might be asking, what is a stakeholder? A stakeholder is anyone who is affected by the project or who is perceived to be affected by the project, either positively or negatively, or anyone who is showing interest in the project. Those ones are called stakeholders. If you want to understand more about stakeholder management, I've created a comprehensive video on stakeholder management. You can watch it on my channel. I'll also leave a link in the description below. So let's move on. So stakeholder management, in actual fact, stakeholders, they are classified as in two categories. The first one being internal stakeholders. It means these are the stakeholders within your organization or your business. Say, for example, it could be your finance department or head of finance, for example, chief operations officer, for example, or even ICT department or HR. Those are internal, or even your staff. Those are internal stakeholders. Then external stakeholders, you hear, for example, those who are outside your organization or your business. We are talking of, for example, vendors, which means those who are going to supply some services or goods into the organization or project. We are also talking about regulator, for example. We are also talking about local authority, the police, and everyone else who is not part of the organization or the business. So those are called external stakeholders. So you are going to face challenges when it comes to managing stakeholders in a project environment. You have to make sure that you are able to identify your stakeholders, create a stakeholder register, and understand their communication, their needs. Also evaluate how to work with them. You also try to monitor, prioritize them, also the stakeholders. Who gets what at what time, and who has influence more than the other, who has got power in the project environment more than the other. That is how you're going to overcome that challenge. If you don't prioritize, you don't understand, you don't even evaluate, you don't even identify your stakeholders, it will be very challenging. So you need... We're going to cover one of the three types or one of the three categories of project managers in this world. So this is going to be intentional project manager. When we say an intentional project manager, this is someone who has actually planned, who has actually decided that they want to manage projects. So they go through like certifications, they also read a lot of books, they make themselves experienced, and then they become project manager and they become successful. So in this section, we are going to look at the intentional project manager. So you're an intentional project manager. You are planning to be a project manager. You want to be a project manager. So you create a path to become a project manager. One of them is to make sure that you certify yourself to become a project manager. The other one, you read a lot of books or textbooks or even journals to understand about project manager. You can also even shadow some of these project managers so that when they're not there, at least you can experience. You can also push yourself into project management so that you can gain a lot of experience. So intentional project manager is one of the categories or one of the types of project managers that you find in every project environment. So intentional is like you have planned, you want to be a project manager, either due to some inspiration from someone else, or maybe it could be due to some successful project that you have seen somewhere. So there are so many reasons that can push you to be an intentional project manager. You do your own assessment, you understand the pressures associated with that project management. You also understand the needs associated with project management. So let's go through this category, or this type of project manager, and then understand one by one what it means to be an intentional project manager. So let's go through the journey of being an intentional project manager. The first step that is expected is research, which means you have researched on how to become a project manager. You have tried to understand how to become a project manager. You have checked either through the journals, through the internet, through some books, how to become a project manager. So the first part of the journey to become an intentional project manager is to research the path to become a project manager. Certification, experience, shadowing other PMs, being involved in projects, improving your project leadership, improving your soft skills, and so on and so forth. So that is very, very important for you to appreciate, and for you to also create a path to intentional project management. So as an intentional project manager, you might go through some education, which is a second stage of this journey to become intentional project manager. You educate yourself. It could be through certification, like I said earlier. It could be through reading journals or books on project management, or it could be also in terms of asking a mentor to coach you on how to become a project manager. So the second stage is very straightforward. You are educating yourself to become a project manager. How long it's going to take, it depends on the pace at which you are pushing yourself to become a project manager. So once you become a project manager, you also need some experience. So you need someone to coach you. You need someone to work with. If you've got a problem, you can ask. If you've got issues, you can ask. So that is the second stage of the journey of being an intentional project manager. So the third stage of this journey is certification. So you can certify yourself as a project management professional through PMI, or you can even certify yourself as an Agile certified project manager, or probably you might want to go for another certification like a Prince 2 methodology to certify yourself. So you're intentionally pushing and moving yourself towards project management. You're totally different from an accidental project manager. So it's part of the journey. This is stage number 3. We want to look at stage number 4. So stage number 4 of the journey is practice. I can tell you from my experience, you have to practice. Project management is all about practicing. When I was on my 10th project, that's when I started gaining too much of my confidence. I said to myself, now I can deliver any project. But it will be very unusual. You do only one project, then you become a master. So practice is one of the journey points that you have to take in project management cycle, especially if you're going through the intentional project management process. So you intend to practice the project management skills. You can start with small projects. You don't need to start with big projects. You cannot expect yourself to be a very good project manager by just doing either studies, you take some online courses, and then you claim to be a project manager. It will not work that way. You cannot even get yourself certified as a PMI certified, a Prince 2 certified, or Agile certified. Then you think you're now you're now a master in terms of project management. You can't do that. You have to practice. You have to go through the process of initiating a project, the process of planning a project, the process of monitoring and controlling a project, the process of executing a project, the process of closing a project, all the way from the start up to the end. That is what I'm calling practice. Don't just do one cycle. You have done initiation, then you think you're now a master in terms of project management. It will not work that way. You will suffer if you don't follow the actual practice that is required. You actually need a number of projects, depending on the size, but you need a number of projects because every project is unique. You won't be finding the same people, same objectives, same goals, and so on and so forth. All these things might differ from project to project. So it is quite important that you practice with different projects. Don't confine yourself unless if it is actually your career that you want to take. Say, for example, you want to confine yourself only to construction projects or to software projects or, for example, to finance projects and so on and so forth. But if you have got a chance to do different categories of projects, especially within your first years as a project manager, that will be very good for you. It gives you more experience and also a diverse view of how some of these projects are actually achieved. Then, the last stage of this journey as an intentional project manager is mastery. You should now master project management. It will take years, I can assure you. Me, I've been there for more than 2 decades. So it will take years for you to master. How do you master? There are so many things. The first one is practice. We have spoken about practice before. You need to practice project management with different sections, different categories, not just one area. So once you master that, you also need to, after practice, you also need to have continuous learning. Don't stop learning as a project manager. Should keep a lessons learned log throughout the project. Don't wait for the last minute, throughout the project, because you always learn. Then you can learn from experience, that is the lessons learned. You can also learn from reading case studies of other projects. So there are different ways to learn. These days we now have project management system, PMIs. You can also learn from them. They have user guides, they have case studies, they have examples, they have tips, and so on and so forth. So it's also quite important that if you're an intentional project manager, the last stage is to master project management through continuous learning. So in this section, let us look at what sets you apart as an intentional project manager. So the first one is the fluence in terms of frameworks. Say, for example, you have studied Prince 2 as a project management certification. You now know the framework of Prince 2 methodology. How do you start a project all the way up to the end? Say, for example, you have also studied PMI, which is project management professional. You also have gone through to understand the processes in project management. There are so many processes, 49 of them. there are so many processes that you have to learn. Process for initiation, which there are about 2, and then process for planning, 24 of them, and then execution, you find there are about 10, and then monitoring and control, you have about 12, and then the last one, which is closing, you have only one process. So when you're an intentional project manager, you have taken the task of understanding and appreciating, and you want to make sure that you do project management properly. So how do you do that? You do it through the fluence in terms of frameworks. You should be very fluent in terms of frameworks. You should know if someone is talking about Agile methodology, what does it mean? If someone is talking about Scrum Agile methodology, what does it mean? If someone is talking about predictive or Waterfall project methodology, what does it mean? What are you supposed to do? Remember, in Agile and in predictive project management, you are wearing two caps. Predictive, you are like you are detecting, you are dictating. For Waterfall, you are dictating what has to be done. Everyone comes to you for assistance. Everyone comes to you for knowledge, for guidance, and so on and so forth. But when you become an Agile project manager, you are more of a servant leader. Okay, you facilitate. You are facilitating. You are not a manager. You are a facilitator. You remove blocks or blockers. You also make sure that all the challenges, they are also attended to, and your team is not actually disturbed. So your fluence in terms of frameworks is also very, very important. So the second point which sets you apart is the continuous learning. Okay. So if you're a project manager, you should always be learning. You can learn from case studies. You can learn from your current projects. You can even learn from other projects, from your peers, either within the organization or within the industry. So you should always make sure that you're learning. Even me, I've been in projects for a long time, but still, I'm still learning. There are some things I learn when I implement a new project, which I've never seen in the last 20 or 25 years of my experience. There are also some things which I have to apply, which I've never applied also in the previous projects. So it will set you apart because you're always learning. Remember, you are intentionally becoming a project manager. The third part is you have a recognized credentials. You have certified yourself. You are Prince2 certified, you are PMI certified, you are also an Agile certified. So that makes the difference between you and an accidental project manager. You have the credentials. You can produce your certifications. You can even produce your knowledge. You can even use the domain language in project management. When you say scrumming, what does it mean? When you say predictive waterfall methodology, what does it mean? When you say stakeholder management, what does it mean? When you say procurement, what does it mean? So you have the credentials because you have intentionally gone through the project management cycle or project management certification, and you have the knowledge. So the other part that sets you apart is confidence in authority. I can give you myself. Before I start this YouTube channel, I had to do a lot of reading. I can tell you it's not very easy to be in front of the camera and also to expose yourself to the world through YouTube when you don't have knowledge, when you don't have confidence, when you don't have authority in terms of what you're talking about. So for you to be able to be authoritative, you need to learn, you need to read widely a lot of things, and then you're able to say, as an intended project manager, I'm able to say this with confidence. For example, I'm able to say stakeholder management, stakeholder register, risk register, issue register. What does it mean? When I say we are doing extreme programming as a methodology, when we say we are doing a Kanban as an Agile methodology, what does it mean? So even the domain language in terms of project management process, you can start using that language. So it is very important that when you're an intentional project manager, your confidence and also your authority in terms of subject matter becomes very, very high. Because you know what you're doing, you know what you're supposed to do, you know the domain language, you know how to manage stakeholders, you know what to say in a project board, you know what to say in a steering committee board, you know what to say to the project sponsor, you know what to say when you're reporting project progress. So when you're an intentional project manager, there are some things to watch out for. It's very tempting. I've gone through that process, especially after your certification. I can tell you after my certification, I was very methodical and I can say rigid, if I can use that word, because you have some theory that you have gone through in your certification, and you always, or you think it should always apply. That theory must always apply. Then you'll be shocked to find that there are some things you have to tailor depending on the project. Projects are different and unique. So one of the items to watch out for is over-processing. You know, after certification, it's very tempting that you want to do by the book. But it's a small project, for example. You don't need to have all these other things expanded. You just have to make sure you have your goals, your scope is very clear, you have the right team, you know your stakeholders, and then you execute the project, then you deliver through monitoring and also evaluation or even control. So one of the items you have to watch out for is don't over-process any specific project environment. Always tailor-made the processes of any project certification or knowledge that you have to the project environment. Some of them will drop them off. Some of them you can even improve. You can even introduce some. Say, for example, you're in a hybrid project environment. You might start with predictive and then you go to Agile. So there are so many things that you might force yourself to improve. And be flexible. You might find some organizations who are not following a specific methodology or certification. They have their own templates of doing things. They have their own ways of capturing information. So you need to be very flexible. You should always tailor each and every certification or methodology that you have, the knowledge that you have to the specific project. The project is always unique. It will never be the same. What you did in the last project might be different from what you're going to do in the next project because stakeholders, they differ. Milestones, they also differ. Even the team, they can also differ. Even the budget, the scope, even the timelines. So every project is always unique. So don't always over-process anything in a project environment. So the other trap or something to watch out for when an intentional project manager is the gatekeeping in terms of knowledge. It is the credential gatekeeping. I've encountered some of these project managers on the other side from my clients who always think that because they are certified, because they learned something, therefore they know more than everyone else. Never do that. Always listen to everyone. No one has got monopoly over knowledge. So you should be able to listen to those who have not certified as project managers, to those who are part of project management for a long time. So it's very tempting that you think because I'm certified, now I know everything. No one can tell me about project management. No, don't do that. Always make sure that even if your credentials, they are very, very important, but there are people who can come up with ideas, especially the team that you are working on. Don't try to give them solutions. Ask the team for solutions. They know better than you because they're the ones who are going to deliver the solutions. They're the ones who are going to run the solution. So it's quite important that the credential gatekeeping, you lower it down, listen to other people in the project. It will help the project to be very successful. So the other trap to watch out for is theory and reality. I can tell you, the best methodology is what is being used by the team. You might disagree with me on that. Let me know in the comment section. I've seen some project managers who join some organizations and all of a sudden they want to change everything that is being done. And that has been working all along. So you try to merge your theory into reality in terms of what actually is in the project, what actually is being done by the project team. They might have a better framework than what you learned in your certification. They might have a better framework than what you understood during your training, your online course, and so on and so forth. So it's always very important that you balance between theory and reality. In theory, something might be practical, but when it comes to reality, it's not practical. There's nothing that you can do. But in theory, you're told you're supposed to either introduce more project members, you're supposed to change direction, you're supposed to escalate. But in reality, it might not work. So that is one of the traps that you should always make sure you're actually monitoring in terms of project cycle. It's very dangerous that because you know the theory, you think everything that you are learning through the theory, it works. That might not work. So the other trap to watch out for is the comfort zone ceiling. You know, after getting certification, you might end up thinking that you now know everything. No one else can say anything. Or you might even think there's no need for you to continue learning. To be a good PM, especially when you go through the intentional process, is to make sure that you learn continuously. Always learn continuously, understand things continuously, listen from the team, listen to the team, understand from the team, learn from the team. Don't try to take yourself as if you have monopoly over knowledge. It's one of the biggest traps when you become an intentional project manager. If you want me to create more videos based on what I've covered in this video, or there's any concept or idea that is not clear to you, you can reach out to me or you can let me know in the comment section below. Thank you for watching.